Welcome to my podcast, Staying in Touch with Jen. This is not your ordinary podcast where it's the same topic every week. This will be things that I thought would be interesting to you that I run across, such as clubs that I'm in, what I'm doing lately, what I've read, what I've seen. Just wanted to share it with you. Different content every week. So if you think of anything that you may want for me to talk about, please share. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you. Today, I am here with Peggy Printz. She is one of my fellow Toastmasters, and I love her dearly. She tells the best stories ever. But I do have a few questions for her, and it may sound repetitious, but I want my audience to get to know our fellow Toastmasters and how long they've been in with Toastmasters and what benefits they've gotten from Toastmasters. So, Peggy, how long have you been a Toastmasters?
I've been in Toastmasters for 18 years.
18 years, wow. Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard the story of you joining Toastmasters during a time that you needed a job. Is that how I remember that story?
Well, actually, I had a pretty good job. It was right after September 11th, and there was a lot of uncertainties in the work environment, in travel, business in general. It was kind of a stressful time. I worked for a company where our headquarters was in New Jersey, right across from New York, so we really felt the impact of that.
Yes. Wow. Wow. And then there are different levels of our members, of our clubs. What level are you?
Well, I started on the Pathways program. I've never really completed the old program, the legacy format, but I'm on level 3 right now in presentation mastery, and I really am enjoying the new Toastmasters. I like the old one, but right now, since I'm stuck my nose into the new part, I don't want to leave.
So you mentioned the pathway programs. Everybody, well, not everybody, but me, when I first joined Toastmasters, I thought it was all about communication. I didn't know anything about this pathways. Can you tell us a little bit about pathways?
Well, yes, actually, it's the most innovative thing that Toastmasters has done for quite some time in the educational program. What it has done is updated things to a more electronic version, and they've still got the basic core values in there. Mostly you acquire confidence, and I don't care how smart you are and what kind of a degree you have, confidence can be kind of a thing that comes and goes. So I think it's something you need to practice frequently, your communication skills. I've noticed in my own life over the years, people who can communicate well have a better chance of getting what they want out of life.
Well, Jesse kind of said the same thing. You know, it's more than just public speaking, right? It's about communication. And you have to communicate whether you're talking to the grocery store clerk or to your boss. You do have to communicate in certain ways. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, in a lot of different ways. And when I was working it was for Medco Health Solutions, and the corporation itself went through lots of different changes with email, conference calls, whether we're going to use phone, we were going to use a fax. So the whole Pathways thing was to update it so that electronics is more integrated. And of course, now we're forced into it. So I think it's something that we need to embrace. Correct. You've got to be able to say what you mean what you say, and it eliminates so many trauma things in life if you can be clear and concise.
That is definitely a true statement. Now, Peggy, when we talk about education and pathways, the educational part, can you explain that just a little bit more of what happens? And I think I'm still learning the different levels myself after a year and a half. But when you go through this educational, it ranks you up. Is that a correct statement?
Right. There's different levels of achievement, and there's usually speeches and an activity with each one. Like in level 3, for instance, right now, of course, you always start out with your icebreaker, and then there's a couple of other speeches there, and then your level 2s. But I have noticed that each speech has activities involved with it that you have to dig a little bit harder. But they're more memorable speeches that you do. Mm-hmm. They're more engaging as far as you and your life. And that's a hard thing to do, how they were going to know ahead of time what our futures were going to be like and what sort of things that we're going to need. So it's still up to the individual. It's an experiential learning process. If you don't know how to be chairman of the board, this is a good place to come. And sometimes as you grow older, you may have leadership responsibilities loaded on you. Mm-hmm. And you need to learn how to accept those and deal with it.
Yeah. And the pathways, it's kind of interesting because, of course, I do a lot of things with technology, the social media, and the level that I'm on right now, I'm on the leadership development level 4. Mm-hmm. And this is where the podcast is coming in. It asked me to do a podcast or a blog. I'm like, well, I'd rather do the technology than sit in front of the computer and write something. Mm-hmm. And then I get to interview and I get to interact. So I think that this is helping me along also on maybe my interviewing skills, interviewing, or how do I want to say, vet vendors. It's a really good way to start learning different ways to communicate amongst different industries and people.
I think it helps you learn how to ask the right questions, the right probing questions, more on target for maybe your individual that you're interviewing, but especially for what you're doing. There is nothing quite like having the experience of doing a job or a presentation or a project. It's the difference between driving the car and reading about it.
I like that analogy. Yeah. That's really cool. Spot on. So there are, how do I want to say this? If there is one thing that you think a prospective member could benefit from being a Toastmaster, what is your one thing?
I would have to say that all of your relationships will improve, whether it's your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your children, your boss. People will look at you a second time and go, huh? What made you different this time? Because you don't get upset about things. You learn how to say what you mean. Mm-hmm. And you don't let things go. You avoid passive aggressive behaviors. A lot of that sort of thing seems to all get ironed out.
Wow. I like that. That was pretty profound. Well, Peggy, thank you for jumping in on the call. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate the teamwork that you do for Valley Voices and Vices. And I think that's it. Do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
Well, I would encourage anyone at any age to just jump in where you're at and try this. The most interesting people you meet, it could even be you.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Well, thank you again. Have a great Sunday afternoon, and we'll see you on Friday.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.